This is the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. So great to have you on the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. Joining me today, we've got the service pastor for the 9 a.m. service, the 11 a.m. service, the most community-minded person I know, Mark Dick.
Hello, everybody.
We have the Wonder Woman extraordinaire, Glenda Postman.
Hi.
And we have the service pastor for the 6 o'clock service, the young at heart, Luke Watson.
Greetings.
Sometimes he's not young at heart, I'd just like to say. Sometimes he's a little old man.
Maybe next week I'll change it to the growing to be old man at heart.
Yeah.
Old soul.
Old soul.
Yeah. Except he has a grumpy inner voice.
Grumpy old man. Gotta tame the grumpy old man.
We call him the grumpy old man. So sometimes we say to Luke, your grumpy old man's coming out.
Yeah, it's true.
But he's young at heart.
It's true.
He is young at heart. That's the best part is like he works with young adults, but he actually isn't that young. And so he's young at heart.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's good.
I still think I could keep up with the 18, 19, 20-year-olds. No problem. Put me on the hockey rink.
Yeah. You just see him on grad trip with the grade 12s.
Yes.
It's very clear how old he is.
That's so good. Funny story.
I'm Levi. I'm your host. And we're going to kick things off with a fun morning question. Today's fun morning question is, what would you rate a 10 out of 10? It can be anything as long as you rate it 10 out of 10.
We have like a constant rating system in our house, like constantly. Like we're like, if someone has a really good day, we give them like a 10 out of 10. Like every once in a while, our friends will be like, you get a 10 out of 10 because you did so great. The thing I would give 10 out of 10 is a person, because we have ants around our house that have been driving me crazy. I'm constantly buying ant killer. We try the foam, you stick in the hole and it.
Yes, yes, in the hole.
It's very rewarding, that foam. However, we try sprinkles and sprays and everything. And then my husband comes home with this lady from work has told him about this ant lady that she'll come. You pay her a lump sum of money and she will make sure you do not have an ant. Like she would come with this therma something heat thing and look and find like their nests and colonies. But we have like a tamped down driveway with like sand in between cobblestones and they're digging up all of our sand. We have spent a lot of money. So for $200, she will come to your house and make sure you have no ants in your house. We don't have them in your house. She says it's bad if you don't let them get in your house. But because they will just colonize and colonize. So my ant lady, she will come all year. She'll just show up and kill your ants constantly.
So wait a second.
All year for $200.
How many times has she come?
Until they're gone. Until they're gone.
Oh, okay.
That's huge, Mark.
Yep, the ant lady.
The ants get annoying. The little ant hills you trip over when you're right on the grass.
They're everywhere.
The lumpy.
She said they're thirsty. That's why they come up. But she says when they come up, they bring their larvae. So you have to kill them. And the thing is, we can kill that spray and stuff. You can kill the ant, but we're not killing the larvae. Anyway, that's my story. 10 out of 10.
You learn something every day.
I'm dumbfounded. Dumbfounded.
So how is she killing the larva?
I don't know. I don't know. She comes with her.
I think we need to come back to this. This is a new lady. A 10 out of 10 seems a bit preemptive. She hasn't proven herself yet.
Listen, she killed all of our friends' ants. And they had them in the house.
I was a little bit concerned there when you said she killed all of our friends. And then you said ants.
All of our friends. Ants.
And the larva. Hopefully.
I'm just going to give her a 10 out of 10 because she came and she was lovely. And she's like, and she pointed at the ant and said, I'm coming for you. It was the best. I give her a 10 out of 10.
And she trash talks.
Trash talks the ant.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10
I'm coming for you.
Oh, man.
Good.
And when she goes home in the evenings, she plays Fortnite. That's where she learns her trash talk. Fortnite.
No, she doesn't. I shouldn't say this. She doesn't play Fortnite. She goes and bird watches.
Looks for where the birds are going to get
She's
the
a bird
ants.
watcher. Yeah.
Yeah. She is, right?
That's good.
I
She
don't know.
is right. She is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I won't,
Mark,
I
what are you
won't go any
giving-
further with that.
Mark, what are you
Okay.
giving 10 out of 10?
This is a tough question for me. You know what?
His
I'm going to give
wife.
10 out of 10. I was going to go with Bonnie because
I was going to give Keenan 10 out
she's
of
a
10. You said
dime.
I couldn't.
Nope. Not allowed to do your spouse.
but I'm gonna
out.
go with like my back deck and like the sitting outside when it's not. See, part of the problem is the weather wrecks my 10 out of 10 because if it's windy, it's not as nice. So, but I would say my back deck, it's quiet, it's nice, it's my place, my
Excellent.
backyard. And actually, I like
Nice.
it. It even improves when people show up. So I enjoy my backyard, gets even more 10 out of 10, if that's possible. Not when more people
11
show up.
out of 10.
It gets to be
Nice.
11 out of 10.
Nice.
How about
Awesome.
you?
Nice,
Levi?
Mark.
Luke Watson. What are you
And
giving
this
10?
might be surprising, Glenda, but 2 days ago, so Jen Dossel gave Ruthie a stain remover bar of soap.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
used it the other day, and it was a 10 out of 10. Unbelievable.
Wow. What
So,
kind
you
of
know,
soap
I
is
do
this?
I don't know. It was just, I'm like, where'd you get the stain remover? Because I've used the spray bottle, and then you have to rub the clothes together, whatever. Kind of annoying. This bar of soap, like, it's all foamy, you do it, and then it's gone. The stain's
Is
gone.
it just yellow? A yellow bar of soap?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
but
just
it's some sort
probably
of.
just sunlight, isn't it?
Oh,
No,
maybe,
no,
I don't
no.
know. Ruthie
It's
just
like-
said
is it like
Jen
this
Dossel
thin?
gave it to her. Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
this thin? Yeah, it's like a baby's wonder. Like
Yes.
you can get it at Baby Laurel. You can get it at all these baby stores. It is an amazing stain stick.
Nice,
Oh, man.
Levi.
You must
I
tell
couldn't
us what
believe
this
it.
is.
Couldn't believe it.
We stock up with it in our house all the time because it gets all stains out.
Luke, I am just impressed you are concerned enough to remove stains from your clothing. I'm going to give you a 10 out of 10 for that.
Have you ever
Thank you,
eaten
Glenda.
with Luke?
Your
Well,
own
for the
stain removal.
Kids. Well, yeah, the kids' clothing. Yeah.
Have you eaten with Luke? Every
Jen
time
Dossel.
him and
No, the
him
Jen
and Jared,
Dossel.
they drop food on their shirts. They need to stain removed. Him and Jared, man.
Yeah, you eat ribs, wings.
Yeah, but I'm impressed you wash your own clothes?
What?
Yes, it's 2019.
We're not. Yeah, it's 2020.
Does not wash
Yeah.
your own clothes.
Or sorry, what do you say? 2015 was Trudeau's comment. Yeah.
2020. Okay, people do that now? I didn't know.
Hey,
I think you
Did
get a
you just
10 out of
say-
10 for doing your own laundry.
did you just say Keenan 10 out of 10 postman doesn't wash his own laundry?
Well,
Oh my words.
You guys all wash your own laundry.
You know what? It just, I thought he did the laundry too in your house. You know what?
He doesn't
did
clean a
floors.
bathroom. He
He
doesn't
doesn't.
he doesn't do any of those things.
and still, Mark gets a 10 out of 10. That's what
Please-
I'm talking about.
10
You
out
need
of
to
10.
stop. You're ruining my thing about Keenan right now. He was like on a pedestal and you just knocked him off.
Listen, we're old people with traditional blue and pink rolls. I'm an
I-
egalitarian slash
She's
biblical complementarian. So
very,
just live with it.
pink rolls.
Very confusing.
I love this.
Yeah, this is very confusing for me. My whole thought of who Glenda is shifted.
Keenan, my thought of Keenan. Like Glenda, I can see doing this, assuming the roles. Keenan, you just blew my mind right now.
And he's still 10 out of 10 though with that. That's
He's 10
awesome.
out of 10. He's the best.
You know what? He stays in his lane. He knows his roles. He kills it.
He will
Oh
not clean
my.
a bathroom even if I beg him. He might if I really beg
He
him.
would.
but
Beg.
He wouldn't.
He would.
Levi, what do you get 10 out of 10?
I'm gonna say Purple Carrot in Lethbridge. It's like a health and wellness place, but I don't necessarily do all of the health and wellness stuff. But I like refill stations and using products that are environmentally friendly, and so that is my go-to place for everything. Like, I get my deodorant there; it's
What?
refilled. I get
you use
my
a crystal?
toothpaste. I don't use a crystal. I don't believe in that kind of
Okay.
stuff. But I really
you don't
do believe in like
smelling?
trying to save the environment, and I think that's one of our calls as God's people, to care for what He's created. And so anyways, yeah, I get
Do you
all
use a
laundry
hanky?
soap,
Do you use a
dish soap.
hanky or do you use
hand
Kleenex?
soap.
Ooh, good question.
I just use my hand. No.
Wow. I didn't know.
No,
I'm really behind.
I do use Kleenex. I don't use a hanky. No, that's kind of gross. So I'm
You
not saying
refill.
I'm all out. I'm not all out. I don't have the tushy yet, which is the
What's the
bidet.
tushy? Oh.
What's the tushy?
bidet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Oh.
about doing the bidet. I think about these things. I don't necessarily am going to go all out, but I use a shampoo bar.
Ooh, does it not foam? Does it foam?
It foams pretty good,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
And a conditioner bar and a bar of soap now. But this is a big change for me. Like, this has probably been a year that things have changed. I slowly moved into the toothpaste to the more bars of soap and stuff. But I used to be everything bottled, everything, just brand name.
It's a good idea, Levi. It's a good idea. Use a bar of soap.
Some people think I'm crazy. Some
You're
people think I'm a
inspiring
hippie.
me.
But
You're very inspiring to me. Is it okay
Yes.
that I get the ant lady? Is that environmentally okay to kill the ants?
I mean,
Good.
I don't know what she's using to kill the ants. So right
Hopefully
now
a
I'm
lot
not
of
going to say
chemicals.
Probably
anything.
A
something.
lot of
toxic.
chemicals. Yeah.
Whatever.
Was it a lot of chemicals?
GP is
I
whatever
don't know.
works. Whatever works.
Does it work?
Hey, Mark.
I don't want to live with the ants.
the
I don't want to
fact
be
that
one with the ants
The
anymore.
fact that there's an ant lady, it makes me think that they would be more on my side and use natural things.
Okay.
If she's just taking a down, just a under the table payment.
No, she's not. She's
she's
a
not?
legit business.
Under the table. That's good.
Sounded pretty
can
under
you,
the table.
Her name is
Mark,
Pam.
can you comment on a bidet? Mark, please.
I got zero things about the bidet.
For our listeners that don't know what a bidet is, Mark, can you explain?
Yeah.
Is
You
it
can-
like
you
a
know what?
wand? Is it like a wand?
No.
No,
you,
it's
you
like
attach it to your toilet.
I know, but how? What is it?
It
It
shoots
shoots
up
up?
at you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shoots up.
Man, if
It's
you
like,
if you have little kids, Ivor's gonna flush that thing. You're gonna get a flooded.
They
This-
have different
That-
locks and stuff like that
Okay.
on it.
You sit the
You
kid
can't
down
get
and
the
you
lock up.
strap them in, and then you hold that thing down. It's dangerous.
Basically, a shower for your behind.
Yeah,
We should move
butt
on.
shower.
Okay, it seems weird, but I feel like there is some benefits to it.
Yeah.
So
Cleanliness
I'm not saying I'm
next to
going with it. I'm
godliness.
just saying maybe. If you
People
come to
who
my
have
house, you
them,
might.
buy them.
I've heard from all of the people who have them that they would ever
I
go
don't know
back.
one person who has it.
Me neither.
What?
No, we're old.
Really?
We are old people. We have old
Yeah,
people
remember?
things, and we do blue
Old
and
people
pink
things.
jobs. Okay.
Yeah,
Man, the people that I know who have them are your age.
they're the ones that can afford them.
I know.
I must
Yeah.
make friends with these people. I need a list.
I was
A list.
What?
Okay,
Oh, you're
Yes.
making me laugh
Okay.
today.
Okay.
10 out of 10s.
10 out of 10s. Any question that we have gets out of hand.
Yes.
It's time to move to our message. This week we had Luke preaching. Again, we're so glad that Luke's with us. He was preaching on Daniel chapters 4 and 5, where we see King Nebuchadnezzar actually has a little bit of a change in how he lives his life at that point. It's years later, and there's a little bit of a change in his life. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. But before we get too into that, C.S. Lewis says pride has been the chief cause of misery in every nation and every family since the world began. How and where do you see pride in your life?
Whoa. I thought we were talking about the message. You get all
Nice
personal and
little-
real up in there.
Luke
That
said that in the
is
message.
he said that, and so we're starting with the conversation about pride because I think that kind of leads into King Nebuchadnezzar. He dealt with a lot of pride, and now we're seeing this change in his life. So let's talk about pride first.
Yeah,
Is that-
I think. No, sorry, Glenn. What were you gonna say?
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna jump in when he said it hijacks love, right? And can you love without being asking for forgiveness or extending forgiveness to somebody that you love, right? And I think that's the way pride gets in there. And so for me, like being right, it causes me to become more unable to forgive quickly, I think. And that's where that line comes in that C.S. Lewis stops there, right? We can't, if we have pride, we can't love fully because love requires forgiveness.
Well, and really, pride is that from Mere Christianity, Luke, that quote?
Yeah.
Okay,
Both
because
of them
he talks about in Mere Christianity too that pride it isn't actually just itself. The idea of pride is that it's having more than the next person. So that's the thing that pride feeds you. It's the comparison. So it's the comparison that makes you proud in it. And so really, I just don't think it's ultimately like it's selfish. It's self-seeking because you're saying I need to have more than that person. Because if you didn't have that, then it wouldn't be pride really.
So it ends up being about me. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
I think
the classic is, like, I think we often see this, I mean, in marriage too, where we think that marriage is about me. So what I get, what I deserve, and it's so easy to go tit for tat in your marriage. Well, you did this, so now I deserve this. So it goes back to what you said, Mark, with the selfishness thing. And all of a sudden you're realizing that this is just putting you at odds with each other and it's pulling you apart. Whereas, love is keeping no record of wrong.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
And so pride is anti 1 Corinthians 13, which talks about love. Right?
Yeah.
Do you think pride too it's really placing yourself in the center? So when you talked about like really what is the center going to be, it really just places myself in the center because my ideas get elevated, my thoughts get elevated,
Right.
what I want gets elevated above anybody else is pride. And I think too in like where I see pride in my life right now in COVID is that I think there's a certain way that things should go and like yeah, we should obey the ideas of the law and like I just think that there's a way it should go, and when people don't agree with that, I think they're wrong. This isn't probably very holy of me or nice or kind or loving in any way, but really there's so many ways that we can have like certain thoughts and that they're right. And I thought Jared's devotional that he wrote yesterday, I don't know if you guys are watching the devotionals or reading them in the book, but was really good, just saying like when I think that I know the right answer, I think I know what's good, and that someone else's idea is bad. I think that's pride.
So where's it?
Yeah,
Is
really
it so?
good.
That's really good. What are the pieces then, or when? So I would agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think the further to that question is how then do you like engage or like if is there a balance? I'm like, so then do you never have the right answer? Do you like is if you give whatever you think is the right thing, is that prideful? Like do you get what I'm saying? So if like I think Glenda, you have brilliant ideas, and maybe if you would tell us the way that you think things should be, we actually think you would have the right answers. At what point does sharing your ideas, at what point does sharing what you think is the right thing become prideful? Am I making like that? Like if I don't know if that
I think
makes
it's
sense.
about the root of your heart. Where's your heart at? And I know that's a hard thing for people to judge other people's where their hearts are at. But if you spend some time with God, reflecting on where your heart's at, I think those are the things that kind of come to the surface. I know my personality type, it lends itself to pride very easily, and I would be the first person to say that. Like I will come into a room and say like my idea is the best, or like, and I have to really check myself constantly to know if that doesn't mean I have all bad ideas and I'm just pushing them on people. I think I do have some really good ideas. I just have to make sure that I'm being humble in the way that I present it, and that my heart is actually for actually finding the best idea, not my idea.
I think that's I don't think you're wrong. I think that's awesome, and I wasn't talking about.
No. I don't
guess
think you're
I was
talking about
thinking,
me specifically
yeah,
or
I was
anyone, but yeah.
thinking in particular about myself. But I think that goes back to a bit of the like, even like if we talk about whatever we happen to do or however we happen to interact with people, because that seemingly is when our pride comes out. I think not all the time, but I think that's when it comes out. If you go back to 1 Corinthians 13, which is kind of funny, if you talking about love and responding to people in love, at the beginning it says you're just a gong or a noisy gong, or if you don't do the things out of love, it doesn't really matter. And I think the opposite of doing things out of love would be doing them out of pride. And then those sort of, I don't know. I agree with you. It's the heart and our motivation are to do what we do or say what we say.
Really,
you can be right, man. That's good, Mark.
Even our ideas about God, like we can think. I was watching American Gospel. Is that what it's called? American Gospel on Netflix. And it was talking about, oh, here's this view of this, here's this view of that. And I'm like, all these people are convinced that they've heard from God that this is the one best way.
Yeah, that's good.
But really, it does all. I mean, I just see my own self in that it just reeks of pride that we think that we have the answer. And I don't think it shouldn't negate our voice that we have a discussion and talk about things, because we do want to find like a good solution to the next thing that we're talking about, or which way we should go, or what we think what we believe. But man, pride creeps into that. And I think the pride creeps in when we're saying, but I think my idea is better than yours. I think.
Glenda, I think this is why we have so much division in the church. And maybe I'm wrong, but the reason why we have so many denominations, Baptist, Pentecostal, Catholic, whatever, Protestant, is probably because of that issue. We think that our way is the right way. We have the best interpretation of Scripture. Yeah. You're wrong. I'm right. I'm going to go at my own church and start a new denomination you think, because I'm the ultimate authority I've heard from God. How often does that creep in church?
Because you're thinking this idea is better than, and that's why it comes in the comparison. But this is a better read of that scripture than this is. So it's hard, and it's hard to know what's wisdom in that as well.
How to get that wisdom and discernment, and yes.
And remembering that wisdom starts in the fear of the Lord. So really, what do we know about God anyway?
But then you need,
So we see God changing the heart of Nebuchadnezzar, this miracle of a changed life. Where do we see God at work in that?
I mean, I think we get front row seats to that, which I think is one of the great joys, that we get the front row seats of hearing people's stories of God and seeing that. And I even think of my own life and think, I am who I am not because I managed to, and hopefully I'm still becoming something more than I am, but not because I've managed to control things, or I've managed to take the fruit of God and like shove it down my throat and make myself be more gentle and kind and loving of others and peace-filled and long-suffering. But it's just really God changing me. So I think I am like a completely different person, I think, than I was. A whole new life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that, Glenn, about the front row seat. Like, we get that. Every Christian has the opportunity to have a front row seat to watch God do not only work in their life, but work in the lives of other people around them. And I think the part that really struck me about Daniel was that prayerful, present, and available. That's our call too. But we have to leave the outcome up to the Holy Spirit. Like you said, Glenn, it's the Holy Spirit does the work. And I mean, it's so funny. Like, even you adults, Levi, when you say where you see God working, like probably about 3 years ago, we had one of our young adults come to us, and they were in and out of the church all the time, pretty hard heart. And now all of a sudden, I just heard a testimony that their love in small group, they've given their life over to Jesus. And I'm like, it's been 3 years. And that's just, it is a miracle, because that was not where they were 3 years ago. And the fact that's happened is we got a front row seat.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think the thing I like about Nebuchadnezzar, one, it takes a long time, but God has proven himself like these huge,
Yeah, that's good.
huge things, and it's taken this long. And so like sometimes I get really down on myself when I feel like there's a huge thing that God's done in someone's life and they still are like unsure, or like they haven't bought all in, and I'm like, come on, like what would it even take for you to go all in? And then I had to just remember, like it can take time, like, and it took time for Nebuchadnezzar to really go all in and to realize, even though he had time and time again these signs, that
Right.
clearly God is greater than both Nebuchadnezzar and all these other gods that were in place.
It's actually interesting because I think there's similarities to today. I would even say, you know, we often think about today how like we have all this wealth and we have all the like capabilities and abilities to do our own thing. So I would even look at my own life. Like I look back and say, oh yeah, they didn't have it as easy as I have it today, or have the resources that I have today and all that kind of stuff. So like they depended on God, and he showed up and they were like, oh yeah, awesome. But Nebuchadnezzar, like he had everything at his like fingertips. He could own all of the things, whatever he wanted to do, whenever he wanted to do it. Where I think that the like studying through Daniel for sure is like a reminder that, oh yeah, like God showed up in like miraculous ways then for people who had all of the things. We actually live in a world where I'll say in a world where we are right now, where I live, is easier. Like I have a job, I have a house, I have a food, can see God show up. We have a medical system that heals people. And you're right. I would probably be one of those people, Levi, that you might look at and say, what's your problem? How come you can't just like fully all of the things? And I feel like I do. And then it comes to a point where I think I can do it on my own, and I try and then like abruptly fail.
Which is ultimately pride too, right?
That's
You
what,
do it on
so
your own, yeah.
Thank you, Glenda, for reminding me. This is
Well,
what
come,
pride
I
showed up.
reminded Luke last week. I felt that this should even it out.
Yeah, even this out. Thank you. Yeah, but
Do
it's
you,
true.
like, yeah, and Mark, like I always think too, and I think that's where Nebuchadnezzar challenged me as well, just reading his story, is that if I saw a miracle, and that's one of the things I'm asking God. I mean, yeah, there's one of my inner prayers. Lord, I want to see a miracle. And like this reminder, well, you've seen God change people's hearts and stuff like that. But for some reason, to witness a healing or something like that, I just feel would be so encouraging for me personally. I think for the people that watch it, you know, for the young adults, I'm kind of asking God for that. I want to see it.
That's interesting, Luke. I think God changing someone's mind is
I know
way more powerful, because I'm like,
I see
you're
this
not
all
just
the
a
time.
recipient of that, you're a participant in that. Like
Yeah,
I
I know.
actually can rule over God in some way in changing my mind. Like I can choose to not accept it. So I'm like, if God's actually going to change who someone is in their personality,
Right, I know, but
that requires everything. That's their will even being changed,
and for
not
some
just their
reason,
body and cells. And
yeah,
I feel like God for sure
Glenda.
ordains those things.
And like Nebuchadnezzar saw all that stuff and he still didn't believe. So that really struck me too, is like Nebuchadnezzar saw the fire and still didn't, you know, he knocked God for a bit and then said, nah, you know, it was years later when he repented. So that kind of challenged me personally. But I still, Glenn, I still want to see the miracle. I guess maybe I need to change my lens. There is miracles all around, but
that's exactly what I was thinking. What you just said, there's miracles everywhere. I'm like, man, dude, you got to change your lens. That's exactly the words I was using in my mind, and thought Nebuchadnezzar saw people walking in the fire and he didn't believe. Like, let's be honest.
Right?
Yeah.
We got to remember that. Yeah.
Man, Luke, I was like diagnosed with cancer after something they would have never found. Never. It feels completely miraculous. I'm sure God used surgery to get rid of it from my body, but literally never would have found it. I got infection after infection. They happened to randomly find it looking for something else. And then when they found the cancer, I never had another infection. Like that is the hand of God so clearly to me. That is miraculous to me. But
love that.
I love that idea that you said though, that it was talking about the prayerful or present, prayerful, and available. That was Daniel's posture in it. And I think
challenged me. Yeah.
Yes, it's challenged me too. And I think like The thing is, he just abided with God and he left these
Yeah.
outcomes to him. So it's just a reminder to me, because sometimes I'm focused on the outcome and forget to be focused on like where my posture, where my position is in this. So I really liked that, because we can get this idea of, I think it's probably coming in the questions, but do better, try harder. Like just do better, have better faith, do this. This is what it requires to be a good Christian. And this is what is required of you. But we forget that really that is the outpour. That's the out part of our inner life of faith.
Yeah, but there's,
Amen,
look at
brother.
present, prayerful, and available are three like check boxes. You can be like, oh yeah, I was present in the word, I prayed, I'm available. But I think the
that's good.
fourth one that you said, that to because those are things we can do, right? You can actually
it could be a
legitimately do
checklist.
those. Yeah. Whereas I think you made your point about you actually have to leave the outcomes. That's where we actually, like, where that you check your heart almost, you know what I mean? Like, that's when you actually can do those things and then say, and it's in your hands, God. That's the most difficult piece, right? You can not allow to let go of the outcomes, to know that we can't be present enough or available enough or pray enough. God still can control the outcomes. He's still like, that's still his thing. So I'm with you. I love those pieces. Yeah, it's good. That tested my heart.
Now that we've moved it into more relating to Daniel, I think often when we read the book of Daniel, we don't want to relate ourselves to Nebuchadnezzar or any of the other kings, or which we should. Everyone wants to be in Daniel's shoes.
Well, I'm obviously the Daniel in the story, so.
Which is so funny, because that's like talking exactly about pride, like
I know,
thinking
right?
that they're like
What?
the best one. I love also that we said, like, this week, the story of Daniel, like the book of Daniel's not the main character, God is. I love that point, because like everyone wants to put themselves in the main character's shoes and like walk.
Right.
This whole time I've been like relating myself to Nebuchadnezzar. I just don't want to say
Levi.
it the whole time. But so now, like, people want to be like Daniel, and they feel like the way is to muscle through. Like you just said, Glenda, they want to do better, try harder, anything to be like Daniel. But you guys have also mentioned this dependence on God side of things. So why does dependence on God matter so much? Like, instead of doing it yourself, and people think, oh, Daniel did it himself. He didn't. Like, you really read it, he like depended on God the whole time.
Daniel couldn't interpret the dream. He said that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to interpret the dream. I need to go to God to find out how to interpret the dream. I mean, and then you even just go to the Apostle Paul too. I think Paul was constantly saying, I am weak. It is he who makes me strong. And I think we love to elevate these characters to be like, I got to be like them. And it's like, no, because these guys were always looking to God. Paul was looking to God. He was looking to God. And likewise, that should be our goal too, is to look to God. Because it's way too easy to lose the gospel in books like this with the better, try harder, do more, be like, yeah, I know, because that's not the gospel. Yeah, you
said we missed the gospel in it, right? We miss the gospel because we think that we have to make bad people good, not dead people alive.
The moral improvement.
Yeah. I think we get confused in our faith all the time.
All the time. And I think that creeps our lives in the church all the time.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you hear it all the time. And I think when you get the idea and you're sitting and listening to something and it's saying, if you want to be a really good Christian, you better, I don't know, maybe that's too harsh to say, but I think you should probably take note of that and like almost push or filter that through something else. This is a mark of your discipleship. This will show where you are on the path in how, but I don't know if we like to go to the things that we can control and the outcomes that we can control. So we forget to go back to the beginning of what has been accomplished for us. So I don't know.
What about, like, maybe this is an off tangent. What about the over spiritualized doing better or trying harder.
What do you mean about
I
that?
might get myself into a little bit of trouble here, but
Oh, here, Levi, this is good.
the people who are like very passionate about their spiritual gift, or like, I really like what you just said, Luke, about like Daniel said he didn't have what it took to interpret the dream.
Right. Yes.
He actually had to rely on God. He had full dependence on God. And that was like after something. But then there's people in the over spiritualized that are, I feel like, trying so hard to like prove that they have these, I don't know, like spiritual gifts, and they're going around telling people like, this is my gift and I'm using it and stuff like that. I'm like, this doesn't sound like dependence on God. This sounds like dependence on your own, on who
Like
you
almost,
are.
Yeah, Levi, let me see if I could, like, almost like I have the gift of healing. I could heal you, and it almost slips into it's because of faith and my prayer life or whatever. Yeah, it almost gets in this mucky water a little bit, and less dependence on God.
What if that is okay? So what about the other side? So we don't know the heart. So the heart says, you know what, this is who God has created me to be. I'm like disconnected. I know that God has created me and to be, you used healer, to heal people and to go around and pray for people. And this is just what I need to do. And so God has told me this is what I need to do, or whatever your gift is. You can use whatever the gift is. But what if the person's heart is that like, is that pure? Is that like Daniel maybe, is that focused on God? He kept this person keeps their eyes focused on God that much, that this is actually how they function. Every day of their life is functioned around this is who God has created me and built me, made me to be, and this is why I do what I do. This other, we say, oh, it seems over spiritualized, and yet maybe this person is like, yeah, except that I'm like super connected. I only do this because this is what God has called me to do. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we all would say that we have that in the way that we've been called to pastor in some way.
Yeah.
So we all have felt that call in some way too. So is that like us asserting something that we shouldn't? But I feel like the call of God doesn't it say like the gifts and calls of God are irrevocable?
Maybe.
Yes, it does say that somewhere. I will find it.
It does, but
so it's irrevocable. It won't be ever taken back.
Mm-hmm. That's actually funny when you just said it that way. When I was in grade like 1, I told maybe I've said this on the podcast, I told my teacher, I was at a Christian school, that I was going to be a pastor. You know, what are you going to be when you grow up? I apparently told the teacher that I was going to be a pastor. And I'll be honest with you, I think I'd be working in construction. If my dad wouldn't have said when I was in like just graduated out of high school that I can't, like after a year of working on construction and making lots of money and was excited about making lots of money, if my dad wouldn't have said, you know what, you should probably go to Bible school. I think there could be other things for you to do. And a youth pastor that spoke into my life, I might still be doing construction, which would have been fine. I would have loved that and would have been like doing what I feel like God would have used whatever I chose to do that. But at some point, I feel like God has called me into what I'm doing or what I have done for the last, it seems like a long time, but 20 years, because this is what God has like called me to, or made me, or built me, or whatever.
Right. Yeah, Mark.
So there's maybe it's over spiritualized because I'm doing it now, but there's also parts of me that think that if I had chosen construction, God could have used that in however spiritualized way you want to say that. But I think there's something, I would agree with you, Glenda, there's something about us even in ministry saying, I think God has like called us, given something about the way I'm created to be in ministry. I don't know.
Well, like Bonnie is a teacher, and like those are just things that.
Yeah, the giftings and abilities.
Passion, like Jordana's passion for people from other cultures, and I think those are God. Romans 11:29 says, God's gifts and His calls are irrevocable.
I'm writing that down.
It's really incredible.
But don't you think even though you're gifted and called, like I still like I would say I'm finding myself feeling more and more inadequate, which is kind of weird, I would say, but more and more needing the Lord to really inspire and lead me.
Yeah.
So so that's right. And man, I just want to say for those, I believe in miracles. And if you got the gift of healing, I want to meet you. We got to pray for some people because I do want to see this happen. I think we need to be bold in our prayer life. We need to ask God for what we want. I'm all for that stuff.
Yeah.
There's a dependency. There's a dependency too. I think that perhaps we need to be reminded of too in the church, myself today.
Well, and again, what is our focus? Then does our focus become the outcome?
Right. Oh, nice, Glenda.
Boom. There it is.
Yeah.
No.
I just like the only reason I brought that up is
It's a good wrestle.
if we're really looking at Daniel and how he walks, if you want to put yourselves in Daniel's shoes, then Daniel walks so humbly and depended so much on God for everything. He did not go into situations saying, I have this ability. He didn't go into
I'm the dream
situation.
interpreter.
Yeah. He never went into those situations saying, these are my gifts. I'll do it. He simply was dependent on God, and God came through. There, we've got the story. And so I'm not saying, again, I'm the same as Luke. Like, if people have the gift of healing, then I want to see it. Like, I think there's a place for you, that God has given you that gift. The same thing for me, where I have to go into a room and I say an idea, I still have to check my heart where I'm at. You still need to check your heart and figure, is that pride coming out about your gifts, or is that actually just dependency on God? I'm not saying I'm in the room judging. I'm just bringing up the conversation. If we're putting ourselves in Daniel's shoes, then we need to actually figure out, are we walking like Daniel?
And really, are we putting ourselves in the center of the story, or are we putting God in the center of the story?
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the gospel before we got into that tangent.
Good wrestle though.
Yeah, really good wrestle. How does the gospel turn our eyes away from ourselves and towards God?
For me personally, I think it is so easy, again, for failure to define, or even like right or wrong, good or bad, all these things to start defining life or where I'm at and stuff like that. And it's like the gospel says, no, you can't be bad enough. Like, your past isn't going to define your life, because it's not based on your dues. It's based on what Jesus has done. So I could actually say that I am a new creation now. The mistakes I made when I was in middle school, high school, university, and college, I could be set free from those things. Just because you're 20 years old and maybe you've made some life decisions that you're not proud of and you regret. I've been there. But too often we let these things define us because we're focused on the works. But just like we focus on the good works, right? Well, I gave this much money my whole life. I gave to the poor and all these things. So that's going to get me in. It's like, no, Paul says that's filthy rags, man. Like, that's not what does it, you know? I think it locks me up, to be honest with you. I think when you start focusing on the works, it locks you. You start focusing on the gospel, it sets you free.
Mm-hmm.
My salvation is not based on the good or the bad. And there's freedom in that. Tomorrow's a new day. I don't know if that makes sense. There's a freedom there.
Well, otherwise, we're really giving people another list of rules. And it might sound different than the Pharisees' list of rules of what they should eat and drink, but really we're just giving another set of rules. So we have to understand it's not what we do. It is what we have been done for us. That this is something that is accomplished, and it's so different when we start working from that too. Like, this is what has been accomplished for us. This is complete and done and sealed and never to be opened again. This is done. This salvation is done, and this redeeming is done. It is. And then it just sets us on a different part. It sets us on a different path. And we're not scrambling. We're not scrambling to make sure that we have to do a checklist. Really, although the checklist comes, the things come. I mean, we do understand that there's a link between faith and works, but our works comes from our faith. So I think it's getting the right order, maybe.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the gospel turns our eyes away from ourselves and towards God because of the power that the gospel has. And just to think, like, I couldn't have done that. Like, I couldn't have saved myself. And so just the fact that it has so much power, it just pulls it away from me. Like, I actually can't save.
Yeah,
people.
that's a good line. It pulls it away from you. You can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the
go ahead.
One of the things that you said in the message was it's not just moral improvement or whatever, and that's, I think, that, like, follow up on what Levi said, right? We can do moral improvement. You can sort of do those sort of things, but like the supernatural, what God can do, the heart, what He's done, that's not something that we can do. So I think that for me, the gospel, like you said, I think that's a good word, Levi, that it's points it away from you. It's not, doesn't put you, I think Glenda said earlier, puts God at the middle, at the center. I think that's
Right.
Man, it's been a great conversation today. It's time to move to On the Lighter Side.
On the lighter side.
So today's On the Lighter Side is, what is one resource you love and use? It can be maybe a book series, a podcast series, even an app. It can't be Keenan.
What?
Can't be the Bible. We already know those ones.
Bible.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Linda last week, what app do you use? I'm like, let me search my phone. Oh, the Bible app. Yeah.
I
Okay.
use the Bible app.
And if I have a question, ask Keenan.
We should make a Keenan app.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start just to get off the Keenan train here, as much as I'd like to pick Keenan as well.
He never listens to our podcast. He doesn't even know that he's funny on here.
Yeah, Bonnie doesn't listen to it either. I would say I do like Twitter because I can access like a few different people. So then I can link to I follow Bob Goff. I like, I probably would use his books. I'm in his devotional, those sort of things. So I would say right now it's him, and he always, he speaks my language.
I would say the Bible app with the plans.
YouVersion?
Been awesome. The YouVersion Bible app. I'm doing it with two friends of mine, and we've gone through like a few plans. It's been awesome.
Okay, but I thought he said you couldn't use the Bible.
Well, I thought you should talk about the book.
Okay. I
you
feel
talking
like
about the app,
it's
Levi?
still a Bible.
Hello. Hey,
He's
Luke,
talking
that's
about
the same.
he's specifically talking about the plans.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, the
Yes.
plans, Glenda. Come on.
Like, if people haven't discovered the plans on the YouVersion Bible app, then you're missing out.
Yes, they are really amazing.
And you know what, Levi, youth kid introduced them to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. A youth. It was awesome.
They know their
Do it.
technology.
Yeah, she said, here's how to do it. It's very simple. Here's how you invite people. And I'm like, my goodness, that's amazing.
Okay, how about you, GP?
I am going to say I love books that are written. I think often we don't get theology from women authors, and I like to read women authors who have good theology. It's not just like, you're good enough and smart enough kind of book, but it's actually like got a little bit of teeth. So I'm reading this by Carolyn Custis James. I don't know if you've read her books. I love her. This is about the Gospel of Ruth. I also love Liturgy of the Ordinary by Tish Warren. I think that's the author of that. Tish Harrison Warren. So I love books like that just have some teeth to it, and they're women who are writing, and I think they speak my native tongue, and lead me somewhere and talk about things that really matter. So those are my favorite things.
Sweet.
My favorite things.
One of the best commentaries I read on First Peter is written by a woman.
It's one of the questions that I like to ask. When I've been on the intern interviews, it's one of the questions I asked all the interns: what women authors have you read that have been impactful to you? It's amazing how many men don't read women authors.
Interesting.
I've got two. One of them is the Relevant Podcast Network. So Relevant is a magazine, a Christian magazine that also has a podcast network, and I am a faithful listener just of the regular Relevant podcast, but they have a lot of different ones on there that I also follow. There's one on Christian leadership. There's one on your marriage and money. There's a counseling one that talks through like counseling. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ones that I like to follow. They have had some heat in the last little bit with some issues that they've been working through with the CEO. But, you know, there has been some redemption there in his story. And so I hesitate before I'm like, everyone go to Relevant. But I feel like you have to give people a second chance sometimes with things, and it's clear that he's been growing. And yeah, so anyways, I follow the Relevant podcast and their network. That's why I love
really,
podcasts
is it
so
as
much,
good
so.
as our podcast?
You know, if you like me as a host, that's
I love
probably
you as a
because
host.
I listen to the Relevant podcast. So
Oh,
yeah. So that's like a lot of my thought of how to even do a podcast would come from listening to other podcasts. So
great, Levi.
my second one is any book by Brene Brown.
Brene.
Yeah, I love her writing. I love how she just helps me figure out who I am better and how to wrestle with some of those deeper things that are hidden. And so, yeah, I really, it's not necessarily a book series, but she's an author that I really like. So
Cool.
yeah.
Great, Levi. Hey,
look, I'm a man reading a woman author.
Yeah, there you are.
One of my favorite authors.
I'm applauding you.
Yeah. It's been awesome. Like I said, after the message, it has been awesome today having a conversation with you guys, hanging out. I hope that everyone who's listening also had a good time just discussing internally, and maybe they can discuss this externally with others. But until next week, saying goodbye. See you
See
guys.
you, everybody. Thanks.